How's everybody doing today? It's Jim, and today we are looking at the bike directly in front of the camera, which is the Lectric XP Stepover. I am approaching slowly. and, this is a bike I got on pre-order from Lectric, kind of based on some reviews I'd seen. You know, some reviews from Kev Central, Electric Bike Review, Lectric, kind of gushing over this bike. For like amazed at what you get for the price point and such. So me being the way I am, I want to know, you know, is that warranted? Is this bike really that great for this price? Again, $8.99 on pre-order. I think it's normally $9.99. It did take me about 3 weeks to get it because it was on a pre-order like when shipping a little later, and I think that's kind of the way it is still right now. So a quick note on what this bike comes with. It comes with a 2-amp charger. It comes with a nice manual with a lot of settings, which I'll talk about when we get up to the display. And I used Kev Central's discount code to get this waterproof set of panniers. And I'm not going to talk about these too much. I find them a little fiddly. The buckles are a little hard to get right in there lined up. So my advice, if I was buying this bike, I'm not sure I would buy this, but if you have one of those codes where you can get this for free, I don't have one, sorry. You know, of course, free bag, why not? But I don't know if I would buy it, and I'm gonna show you one reason why. You can see here, when you have it kind of where you would expect it at the front of the rack, if your foot's on here, and I wear a size 10, you get a lot of heel strike. Kind of the rack sits a little far forward, and even when you get this to the far back, you get some of that. So if you had small feet, or if you really like to ride, you know, you'd have to almost ride mid-foot, which isn't really the ideal way for pedaling. E-bikes, you can get away from some of those ideal things. But just to be a note, I might even opt for a trunk bag on top of this one, rather than this pannier set. Even though they look good, I like their attachment mechanism. Uses these kind of a metal buckle style that don't really get all that tight until there's resistance on them. Just something to note. Has a 48 volt 10.4 amp hour battery that is housed in this part of the frame right here. Here's the charging port. Again, that's that 2-amp charger. I have noticed it's a little hard to get this plug to basically line up to the 2 holes, and I really don't ever get this plug to stay in place very well. Down here is the key which locks the battery into place. That key does have to be locked in the on position and remain in the bike when you're riding it. I kind of find that to be a bit of a weakness. And to get the battery out, as I'll show when we fold it, you have to undo that. The key has to come out to allow the battery to slide out. That battery, I did weigh it at 6.4 pounds. And that gives a projected range by Lectric of 25 to 50 miles, but as we're riding, I'll talk about my range results. Come back here to the motor, which is a Lectric branded 500 watt geared hub motor with what they say is 800 watts of peak output. It actually says 800 plus. So after the battery and the motor, I like to talk about the display. And you can see the setup of the handlebars here. Similar to very many e-bikes, here on the left are the controls for powering on, going through settings, changing your speed limits, what have you. Very simple shifter on this side, Shimano, kind of the interesting style that you see on a lot of other budget bikes, and a half twist throttle over here that is not live in assist level 0. You can see I've ridden 57 miles on this one, so I got a good feel for what it's doing right now. And the one thing I want to point out with Lectric is there's more settings in the display than most of these, especially most budget bikes. And the things that I think are pretty interesting is you can adjust the pedal assist strength and the pedal assist responsiveness. I have this on the default settings, and I'll talk about it as we're riding. I might actually bump up the sensitivity or bump the sensitivity down on the engagement of the pedal assist from the default setting. And speaking of the manual with the settings, it's a nice thick manual here, but what I wanted to show, a lot of bikes you have to go in to find out You know, you have to look elsewhere besides the manual, and this gives you a nice breakdown of all the different settings, the default, and kind of some notes about the ranges that you can put those on. So I think they did a good job on the manual for this particular bike. The quality, like I was just saying, that there's a little bit of spots where the welds don't look great, but the paint job looks super. I think it really does look, you know, it looks real sharp with the black. And the few times I've emailed Lectric prior to getting the pre-order bike, they were really responsive. So I gotta give them some props there for being such a budget-minded bike. They seem like they're really responsive, and you know, that's one of the things I really look for as a company that's gonna, if you have a problem, they're gonna respond. So I'm gonna go through some of the components, and of course all these components will be listed down in the description with some timestamps and some other information, a little summary of my testing. So, of course, with a fat tire bike, fat tires are, you know, the thing that draws your eyes. You got these CST BST 20-inch by 4-inch fat tires front and rear. You got to me it looks like 12-gauge spokes front and rear, it looks like it's a double-walled rim. I can't exactly tell, but it looks like it is to me. You got Textro, not really branded in their line, mechanical disc brakes, which work just fine with 160mm discs, both front and rear. Tied into the 7-speed shifter, you got the 7-speed Shimano Tourney rear derailleur. It's a 14 to 28 tooth system, so you don't have the smallest tooth in the front, and you don't really have the mega range climbing. But you could always change to a different range of rear cassette if you wanted to. The Tourney, it works just fine. This is at the base of the Shimano series, so sometimes you just end up with a little more adjustability or adjustment necessary. Coming up here, we got a 52 tooth chainring up in the front with 170mm crank arms. We have the cadence sensor here, which I like that it's kind of a sealed style. Let's see if I can, I'm gonna push it a little here. I can't exactly tell off the top of my head how many magnets this has in it. I would imagine it's a 6-magnet sensor, but it does have pretty good responsiveness, as we'll see when we're riding. So also, as part of the componentry, you got a front blaze light and a rear blaze light. These are both tied into the display, so you hold the up button, light symbol comes on, got your headlight. Another component wise, this is a steel fork, which I like better on a, you know, something that you could potentially do some trails on versus an aluminum fork. Most of the rest of the bike is aluminum. All right, now some specifications, and this was where this one gets kind of interesting to me. So you have quite a high bottom bracket of 13 inches off the ground, which, as you can see, the bike is set up right now for about my leg extension. So I have a 32-inch inseam, and so to get up on the seat, it's very challenging to touch the ground. So when you end up with these high bottom brackets, if you're somebody that likes to ride with a comfortable leg extension, you end up with this situation where it can be hard to get off and on the seat just due to that high bottom bracket, even though it comes with its own pluses of not likely to strike that on something on rocks if you're doing trails. Some other interesting specifications, I weighed this at 63.2 pounds and Lectric listed at 63, so pretty much spot on, which is a little unusual. Range and weight seem to be the places that most bike manufacturers get a little exaggerative. I don't even know that's a word. So with the seat all the way down, you get a minimum seat height of 31 inches. 25 inches is a standover to ride into that area, so it's, even though it's kind of a smaller folding bike, you can see by, and I'm going to bring another bike in here in a minute, it doesn't look, or in a lot of the ways it doesn't feel like a small bike. Effective top tube, which is another one of those things that makes it feel like a bigger bike, which is basically the horizontal distance from the seat post to the head tube, that is 24.5 inches. That's pretty long. And these handlebars do have a telescoping feature. So right now it's at the minimum, but they do come way up to a point where you don't even really have cable room anymore. And you could end up with kind of a circus bike looking setup. So it could really work for a very tall individual if needed. Steel fenders, and they say they don't really make any noise, so they're pretty solid. They do seem like they have a tendency sometimes to kind of want to sit askew. I've had to readjust them a few times. And it does have these folding pedals, which most folding bikes do have these folding pedals. They are a metal platform pedal, so you push it in, and so it saves you a little bit of distance when you have it folded. So one thing, I don't know if you can tell, I'll flip it, if you can tell this angle, you see how actually one of the taller parts of the pedal is actually this rounded portion on where it pivots. What I've noticed when riding is I feel that more than I feel these nubs. So I would probably, if I was going to ride this bike a lot, I would probably put on a standard platform pedal and not really worry about this folding feature. So you could flip in the pedals if you want. I'm not going to right now, so you can see how that works. There's a little plastic retaining clip that slides into the folding mechanism here. You just kind of turn out of the way. So your handlebars just go down. You know, there is a little cushioning portion here on the stem itself where it contacts, but it actually really contacts the fork up there. So on the folding mechanism, you slide the small tab and then that releases. My only concern with this tab setup here is it doesn't have any secondary lock. So even though the battery is locked into place for functionality, it doesn't provide an extra lock on this mechanism. So once you got it latch released, then it's just the whole process is just folding it in half. And you can see I'm struggling a bit because, you know, it weighs 63 pounds, but it feels awkward when it's in a, you know, the folded state. There is a little bracket down there that it rests on, so it doesn't have to rest on the pedals. It doesn't have anything that holds it together, so if you really wanted to, some sort of little Velcro strap would be good. You put that down all the way. Now I'm just going to show you when you have this open, this is when you can take the battery out, and I just want to show you how this looks. So you have to slide the key all the way out of the base. And this is the battery itself. It does have a nice little built-in little carry handle. So to unfold it back out, lock it into place, slide this little secondary latch in there, and you are ready to go. So I kind of like I do like the idea of the portability. You can probably put, you know, 2 of these in your car where you can only put one, you know, quote unquote regular bike. So that's kind of nice from that perspective. Hopefully this gives you an idea what I'm talking about with geometry. See how on the more standard bike you have an angled out seat tube where this one is quite vertical, and the stem on the Lectric is actually angled outward a little bit versus that rake, that tilted head tube angle. So those two kind of open up the top of the bike and make it kind of feel larger than the bottom of the bike makes it feel. So it's just a geometry thing to be aware of, and you know, it could work out perfectly well for you, or it could be a little bit of an issue.
Electron Server Show.
Oh boy. Just a little look at the display. I'm going to start out in pedal assist level 0, much to my dismay. And you can see how, and so pedal assist level 0, you don't have throttle. So I'm going to take it on some trails in a little bit to tell you if I think that is a real significant issue or not. Oh, and I did it in the highest gear. So I'll talk about my range test in a bit, but I ran completely out of juice and I rode 5 miles in this with no pedal assist, and it is really tough to maintain more than about 7 miles an hour. There's just so much resistance from these fat tires. So with this level effort, which I'm actually breathing a little bit now, I'm just going to go into assist level 1 so you see how it works. So it's at that, I'm just guiding the cadence sensor now, not actually making contact. You can tell there's not a lot of oomph in pedal assist 1. We're looking at 7, 8 miles an hour. Assist level 2, we get a modest jump. You know, we're looking at 12, 13. All right, so we're still here in speed limit 2. And toggle up to speed limit 3. And you see there's a pretty good burst there. And this is really the only assist level, personally, that I find this bike for road riding manageable. It counteracts most of the resistance of these fat tires pretty well. And I'm going to do a couple where you can hear, I'm going to start pedaling now. And you can hear the delay on the cadence sensor. And that really significant delay on when it shuts off. Now, you can adjust. One of the things nice about this display, you have a lot more options in a lot of displays. And you can actually change a little bit of the sensor delay time, the cadence sensor delay time, and I don't know how many magnets are in it, I could not tell. And you can also change the degree of force that the pedal assist is coming in with. I left this on the default settings. I would probably reduce the strength and keep the delay at about the same as it is right now. All right, I just turned up the top speed into the display to what the Lectric manual says you can run at, which is 45 kilometers per hour, and I can't remember exactly what that number is in miles per hour. And I'm going to just do right now a little throttle only, so you know what the top speed in the throttle is. You can see it's a little ginger. I'll put on my acceleration data on the screen. These fat tire bikes tend to be a little slower in the acceleration front. Just there's so much rotational mass. We'll see what the GPS says, see if this speedometer is accurate. I find the odometer to be very accurate. I'm going to kind of do a little pretty quick braking here. You see with the fat tires, even though they're just mechanical disc brakes, you can, especially if you get a little more time on this bike, you can get to stop quite quickly. The fat tire bikes, again, with that rotational mass, don't seem like they stop quite as quickly as some of the other bikes, even though the tread could potentially grab a little better. I'm not doing any pressing, and you can see in a little bit of a hill, you know, with the 500 watt motor, even though it's geared, you don't have quite as much torque as some other setups will. Yeah, just seeing how well it climbs the hill. Alright, so I'm going to go from pedal assist 3, where I typically find this bike a good riding point, and I'm right, I can keep a good pedal cadence, and I'm right at the top of that speed limit, and I can press a little bit if I want to add a little bit more. But if I jump up to speed limit 4, the bike quickly outpaces my ability to really keep up with the pedal. Now you bump it up to level 5 and you're already pretty much there at the top of the speed limit. So it's like I'm kind of finding the speed limits 4 and 5 a little redundant. And I tried changing the speed limit to closer to where I'd want to ride, and that kind of works. You can get it so level 4 will be about like maybe 20 whatever your comfortable like maximum pedaling speed is, but then you kind of lose assist level 5 unless you're okay with the idea of just spinning your pedals. All right, so we're gonna do a little bit of trail riding now, and because of that, I'm gonna drop the seat a little bit so I can stand up more and drink water.
Plenty of water.
Electron Surfer endorses hydration. Now, on a little bit of trail, you get on some gravel. This is really where these are really at home. And this is a pretty ginger for, a pedal assist level 1. Not too bad for this. I think it might even be better if it was a little slower, but there's no real way to change that in the settings. Assist level 2, you can still handle it on a trail that's pretty, pretty ginger. So I'm going to crank it up a little bit, kind of see what this does at some speed. See how it feels. I kind of have a feel for what the bigger fat tires feel, and this is one place I do think the fat tires really do come in. You can really just float over this stuff. So one of my qualms with some of these fat tire bikes is you don't have any, throttle available and assist level 0, which if you get into some real technical stuff, with these lower accuracy cadence sensors, it's really not easy to traverse technical terrain. And if having to be able to be under your own power with be able to grab a little bit of throttle, and this throttle's fairly well modulated. It's a little sudden. It's like more like kind of like a half twist. It does all right. Some of them have a little finer control. This one's a little jumpy. But if you're doing some basic trails, I don't think you're going to be too disappointed by it. So in kind of this pretty firmly packed sand, the fat tires are doing quite well. I kind of add as advertised. I think just the smaller tires, this is not easy stuff to traverse. And these tires don't seem like they're quite, they just kind of get manhandled by this stuff a lot more. Now when I get into some sand, it's okay, but still, see, I'm trying to go up this little hill. I'm throttle only, it's not quite doing it. So I don't know exactly the torque specs for the electric motor. I didn't see anywhere where those were spelled out. If I can find them, I will put them on the screen. It feels quite a bit lower to me than the torque of the Bafang. See right there, you probably got a little indication. Like at that speed right there, the sensor was a little more than I wanted. Oh boy. All right, well here we are. Even though I was really hopeful that the 20-inch fat tires would be maybe a little bit better in sand, or a little more manageable in others, it's not as good stability as the 26. It just isn't, which I guess in some ways isn't isn't horribly surprising, but kind of unfortunate as well. Again, that was another point where you can kind of see that cadence sensor is kind of working against me a little bit. And I don't know if I'll put some parallels from my ride on the Big Cat, but this is a lot more squirrely, and neither of them did I do much of a reduction in tire pressure, so I'm sure I could improve it a little bit, but it's just a little, and so like right there, it's still trying to go on me. Sometimes it's hard to remember that you have a motor cutoff. All right, let's see if I can get out of this stuff. So I'm gonna try to get up this hill. See if I can do it. No, not even close. He emerges from the bushes, moderately scraped, battered, and bruised.
Well, you don't look like you're bleeding.
Oh boy, that was rough.
How was that? That looked kind of intense over there.
Yeah, that was not nearly as smooth as on the bigger tire bike. It really digs in. I mean,
the smaller tires dig in.
Yeah, they don't.
Because those are pretty thick.
They're thick, but they don't float quite to the same extent as the bigger ones. And so, like, I dug in a lot. Like, I almost ditched it a couple times.
So, do you think that some of the digging in
Here's a look at the lights.
Associated with the geometry?
It could be. I think a lot of it's the tires. And here's a, look at the rear light here. Oh, there. All right, well, I'll wrap this up when I have a little more light. So I'm in here in my neighborhood, and I just was realizing as I'm wrapping up this video, I didn't necessarily show the top speed very well. This is the setting that shows I turned the speed limit up to the maximum 45 kilometers per hour. Lectric says above that point you will get an error if you try to go higher than that. I did not try to do that, but that puts you right at your pedal assist or e-bike class 3. Range test number 1 I did like in kind of a Sunday stroll, cruisy ride kind of scenario, and I got a little under 30 miles, 29.2 miles, and I'll put the efficiency and that kind of stuff on the screen. But I actually rode 34 miles, just the last 5 miles or so I rode without assist, so I completely thoroughly exhausted the battery, well beyond where you should go. So in that kind of leisurely speed, it comes in quite a bit below what Lectric kind of has on their range of like 25 to 50 miles. It probably at a 20% brake point, somewhere in the range of 25 miles. Still not awful considering it's a kind of small battery pack. Range test number 2, I did it in throttle only, which is a hard way to ride for me, but I thought it was a good way to kind of get an idea of what you'd be able to do. And right now I'm in the max of throttle only. I got a range of a little over 19 miles with that, which the efficiency was not terrible, but still not quite as much range as kind of advertised. So then the third range test is what I did during the bulk of the review, which was a combination of trails, some higher speed, some lower speed, kind of a mix of what you maybe would expect to use this bike for. And I got a little under 18 miles, 17.9 miles, and that was still taking me a little bit more than 80% of the battery. So in theory, a little further than you'd want to take it. We're in level 3 here. Just going to give you a bit of an idea of the top speed. Just going up to level 4. We're in the highest gear. And right there I'm about the limit of my pedaling that I can keep up with. Now I'm engaging the pedal sensor. Now I just bumped it up to assist level 5. That's engaging the pedal sensor. Alright, so we're engaging the pedal sensor in level 5 again. Just letting it push the bike as hard as it will allow it to see what we get to a top speed. So the display is reading 28. So I find after about 24 miles an hour on the display right there, I just passed it, I can no longer keep up pedaling with the bike. And it looks like the speed taps out right at 28 on the display, which I'm pretty positive was not. Let me hit this one more time. I do not think it was 28 on the GPS. It doesn't feel like it's actually 28. I'm just wrapping up my review of the Lectric XP. It's been a fun bike to ride. I spent a lot more time probably in this video riding and going through some of the stuff just because there's been a lot of reviews about it, mostly because of its price point, really. And as I discussed on the range results, I got a bit below what was projected by Lectric, which, like on my throttle only test, they say you should get 25 miles at pure throttle. I got a little under 18, and I'm a little lighter than their rate, rider weight that they cite in there. So take that with what you will. Based on its battery surprise, I'm not surprised. I would be really surprised to see it match the numbers that they put out in here. That being said, by some of the glowing reviews on the bike, I was expecting it to be, you know, more than its budget category would suggest. And I think it's pretty true to it. The $900, $899 right now pre-order price seems pretty fair for this bike. Really, for me, if it gets much above that, it would be less attractive. Other bikes that are a little more expensive, you get a bit more refinement with some of the drivetrain. But if budget is your real limiting factor and you really want to get into an e-bike, this is about the cheapest way you can do it besides going with a kit. And also, if you're somebody that really isn't looking to pedal a ton, I think this would work out pretty well, because you could have the seat a little lower. Some of the weird geometry stuff, kind of because the two, if you see the seat post and the stem go opposite directions, kind of the lower you have the seat, almost the easier it is for a bike fit. So I hope the look at this book. Jeez. I hope the look of this bike helped you out. I got 83 miles on the odometer. I've noticed a little electrical gremlins that maybe starting to creep up when I'm in a specific pedal assist level. It will kind of be hovering below what that would typically be and then bumps up. Like it's almost like it's being changed, but I'm not changing anything. It's kind of, so I don't know exactly if that will keep manifesting itself, and if it does, I'll contact Lectric about it and post in a follow-up video about it. But thanks a lot for watching. Feel free to leave comments below. Helps everybody out. Thanks. See you next time. More wind, less effort.